What's up, guys? This is the Osmo.com Night Shift Podcast. We've got an 8-game slate to talk about for Thursday, August 30th. Should go by pretty quickly, pretty good mid-tier pitching options. So we're going to talk about that slate. Osmo will have his top pitcher article out on Osmo.com. We'll have the deeper dive, the spotlight hitters, pitchers, stacks, some shows as well, MLB DFS strategy video. We'll have more shows with the guys coming over from FanVice very soon, something I'm pretty excited about. I'm not sure exactly when those are starting, if they're starting tomorrow, but just keep an eye out for those. I know they're coming soon, and these guys are very sharp and players that you can learn a lot from. So, I forgot about ownership projections. Easy for me to say. Just get so excited about talking about DFS. Just lose my words sometimes. Rankings from Osmo himself. And that is really about it. Although I'm sure I'm probably forgetting stuff because we just have so much content going on right now. All right. Let's talk about the 8-gamer, Detroit and New York, the Yankees. Francisco Liriano going up against J.A. Happ. Liriano 4,700 on DK. Obviously not going to play him here. Maybe not obviously, but I don't like lefties going into Yankee Stadium, even though it's a watered-down lineup. There's no Gary Sanchez, there's no Aaron Judge, but still. Torres, Voit, obviously Giancarlo Stanton, Andujar, Hicks, the top 5 for the Yankees, all I think in really great spots. Liriano just walking everyone, hard contact, line drives. I mean, just giving it up to righties. And Yankee Stadium is not a good place to go into for lefties. It hasn't been all season, especially below average ones. Happ for 10K, someone that, I'd like to like him here, if that makes sense. But Detroit, even though they're bad, they don't really strike out that much against lefties. For the season, 20.5%. That's bottom 6 in the MLB. Happ is a very good real-life pitcher. I mean, he can be a good DFS pitcher at times, but a lot of righties, not that really worries me, but just a lot of kind of pesky hitters, guys with not a lot of power, but don't really strike out all that much. I mean, you've got a few at the end with Matuk and Jacoby Jones, but Castellanos a little scary, Candelario, same thing. And there are a bunch of other options in this 8 to 10K range on DK. So Happ, not my favorite. Not going to exclude him from my player pool or anything, but probably won't end up as high on him as the rest of the field. All right, Pittsburgh and St. Louis. Joe Musgrove going up against John Gant. Musgrove for 7K. He's kind of the guy in this range I prefer over like Wade LeBlanc and Heaney, Montas, those kind of guys. So if I'm going to a pitch in the 7K range, it's going to be Musgrove, although on a lot of my lineups I don't think you'll even have to. But a bunch of righties for St. Louis, they'll roll out as always. Wind blowing in here. Musgrove has been much better against righties, striking them out above average and limiting hard hits, doing all the stuff we like to see. And I think he's just too cheap. So I'm going to take a chance on a bunch of Musgrove. Gant on the other side, not looking to play him. I mean, he's kind of a weird pitcher. He'll have these weird 15% swinging strike rate games and look awesome in Coors Field, and then get no swinging strikes the next start. So he's been kind of confusing to me, but against lefties, I think he's been incredibly lucky, and that's shown in his batting average on balls in play, and it's compared to his hard contact. So a 246 BABIP against lefties this year for Gant, but 57% hard contact, under 10% soft contact. That's the lowest on the slate. I think he's got a lot of regression coming, and he's pretty good at getting ground balls, but against lefties, kind of a different story. So I'm of the belief that Gant is not that great of a pitcher, and a 3.8 run total I think is way too low for the Pirates here. So I'm going with Polanco and Dickerson, especially Josh Bell, Colin Moran. If I'm getting up to Verlander, I think the Pirates are going to be a full stack that I go to in order to fit him in. Cubs and Braves, we've got Mike Montgomery going up against Mike Foltynewicz. Montgomery is 6,300 on DK. Foltynewicz 10-4. Montgomery, not a guy I'm going to target here. I don't think he's going to go very deep, and it's not a good strikeout matchup anyways. He's not a big strikeout pitcher anyways. So he's going to let you put the ball in play. He's very good at getting ground balls, a ground ball percentage well above 50% for the season. Get some chases here and there, but not someone I actively target against, not someone that I look to play very often, and this will be no different. I like Acuna. I don't mind Kurt Suzuki, but he's 4,200, so kind of a tough price to pay. And then Ozzie Albies sticks out to me as a pretty good value at 4,400 in that sixth hole. Fultonevich, never someone I target against heavily at all, so the bats are going to be limited in this game for me. He's 10-4, pretty expensive, but I don't mind taking a shot on him. I think he's got as much upside or more than J.A. Happ does in his spot. So Fulte will be a guy I would assume is going to be lower owned than Happ. So I will have a bunch of Fulte. But again, there are just so many decent options for a pretty short slate. And Fulte will be certainly lower owned than a guy like Porcello and Marquez. So if you can get up, I think that he does have a lot of upside, even against a team in the Cubs that doesn't have a ton of strikeouts. I just think Fulte's stuff is so good at times where he can put up a 30 spot in a neutral to below average matchup. Angels and Astros, Andrew Heaney going up against Justin Verlander. Heaney 7,400, someone that I like as a pitcher, but his one kind of downside to him is that he struggles with hard hits, and especially hard hits against righties. And now that Houston is healthy, and they've been healthy for a few days, fully healthy, Springer, Bregman, Altuve, Correa, I don't like this spot at all for Heaney. So the Astros have a run total under 5, but I'm going to be having a bunch of Astros, and this is a team that I'm probably going to make a stand on because I don't think they're going to be super chalky. We've got the Yankees in a great spot. We've got the Red Sox with a big total against Giolito. But then I think the Astros will be third in ownership, and that's super attractive for me. Anytime you can stack up this team fully healthy against a lefty at home too. I mean, yeah, so give me all the Astros 1 through 6 really, but I don't even mind playing Gaddis for 4,100. Verlander 12K, absolutely love him here. I will say the one thing that's making me not want to play as much Verlander as maybe I would on a normal slate is that, well, first, there's two things. There's a lot of options in the mid-tier that I think are fantastic, like Marquez. I think Fulte is fine. Like I said, there's Musgrove, there's Happ. So there are a lot of options, and Verlander's velocity was down a little bit in his last start. One of the lowest averages he's had. It was just 94 miles an hour. So a little bit of a red flag there, but I think he should go down and dominate this lineup. I don't think he's hurting at all or he has a tired arm. It's just one start, and it's just about 1 mile per hour because his velocity was way up in the start prior. So maybe that's just balancing out. He seems fine to me. I have no issue playing him at 12K, even against Trout and Ohtani. Those are the two bats you're worried about, but some guys that definitely will strike out: Arcia, Taylor Ward, Calhoun at the top. Ohtani strikes out quite a bit himself. So Verlander, I think, is the number one option on the slate. Highest floor, highest upside, I would argue. Boston and the White Sox, we've got Rick Porcello going up against Lucas Giolito. Porcello 9,800 on DK. I have to imagine he's going to be pretty chalky just because it's the White Sox. They strike out a bunch. And I mean, I get it. I agree with it. I don't know that Porcello is the highest upside option, but he does randomly have these big games where he strikes out 8 and 9 guys. Not a great guy in terms of plate discipline numbers, like 8.4% swinging strike rate, 30% O-swing rate, but does get a lot of guys taking pitches kind of down the middle or taking pitches in the zone. Z-swing rate is pretty low. XFIP is low. I mean, he's just a solid pitcher, not one I want to play at when he's super chalk. So if he's the chalk option in the 10K range, that's going to make me want to get more Fulte and J.A. Happ, and especially a guy that's cheaper than him. So that's why I won't get to as much Porcello as I'm anticipating the ownership will be on him. But I do think he's a fine play. I don't want to target many White Sox bats against him. Giolito, 5K. Another guy that's sort of confusing. He can put it together in starts. I don't think he will put it together here against this Red Sox team. They're just so good against righties. They have been all year. Giolito still does struggle with walks, and even when he has these great starts, he's not missing bats, and he's kind of had these solid outings against teams that I don't really respect, like the Tigers a couple times recently. So this is just a completely different animal. I wonder if people even consider playing Giolito because he's so cheap, and just to pair with Verlander and get in a ton of big bats, like a Yankee stack or something like that. But no interest in Giolito, a bunch of interest in the Red Sox full stack. So really the top 5, not a big Eduardo Nunez guy. I'd rather go down to like Ian Kinsler if I'm going to someone past those top 5. Seattle and Oakland. We've got Wade LeBlanc going up against Frankie Montas. LeBlanc, 7,200. The chases are up for him a little bit in his last couple starts, but he's just not been as sharp as kind of what we saw leading up into the All-Star break that got me on him for a few starts there. And this Oakland lineup is not one that I want to target against. I mentioned Piscotty, Lowry, Matt Chapman yesterday against a lefty, Semien as well, especially if he's leading off for 3,900. The A's are just too cheap, and LeBlanc, like I said, doesn't look as sharp. I know it's Oakland, it's a tough place to hit, but definitely some interest. I didn't even mention Chris Davis. Definitely some interest in some Seattle bats, or I'm sorry, some Oakland bats. I guess I was kind of foreshadowing there because I do have some interest in Seattle bats as well. Montas hasn't made a major league start in about a month. He went down into AAA, and I mean, wasn't impressive there really at all. Got a couple wins, but the strikeout totals are pretty low. Swinging strikes pretty low as well. I mean, he's not going to miss bats at really any level. So I see a game, 8 earned runs, there's 4 earned run game again. Just not a guy I have any interest in playing. So when he's going to let them put the ball in play against guys like Cano and Cruz and Mitch Haniger, Kyle Seager's only 3,400. Yeah, that makes me want to get in some Seattle Mariners here. Colorado and San Diego, we've got German Marquez against Eric Lauer. This is a game I'm going to be super heavy on, especially the Colorado side. Well, really only the Colorado side. Both hitters and the pitcher, German Marquez. So he's 8,500. I think he's pretty underpriced. He's going to see a bunch of righties striking righties out. Over 30% for the season. Just looks like a phenomenal pitcher. We were on him last time out in Coors. He's got some issues with lefty power, but you look at this Padres lineup, and there's really no lefty power. There's Jankowski. There's Eric Hosmer. Okay, Hosmer's fine. But Freddie Galvis, like none of these guys are really going to strike fear into you when you're playing Marquez. So, I mean, I have to believe that Marquez is going to be probably the highest owned option on the slate. Unless I'm just completely misreading this, he's definitely going to be a top 2 or 3 owned pitcher on the slate and player on the slate. But I think he should be the highest owned player on the slate. I don't really think it's all that close. I mean, I can poke holes in pretty much everyone. Marquez has probably the best matchup, and he looks like one of the better pitchers on this slate right now. Getting a ton of swinging strikes, doing it in Coors, doing it outside of Coors, it does not really matter. The guy just looks really, really sharp right now. Eric Lauer on the other side, 5,200. Wow, no interest in Lauer. I'm pretty much sticking to this mid-tier 7K and up, and then I'll get up to some Verlander. So Lauer, a guy that, man, he gets blasted by righties. on the season 32% hard hit or 32% line drive rate to righties, hard hit rate above 40. He's just not a good pitcher against righties. I mean, again, he can get lefties out, but a 168 whip against righties, like, gets saved by the strikeouts. His xFIP isn't terrible, but I think Lauer is pretty awful, and I want to stack up all the Arenado, Story, LeMahieu, Ian Desmond against him. So the Rockies are one of my favorite stacks on the entire night, and I like that they're in Petco. They're going to have a low total, and I don't think many people will be on them as full stacks with some of these big teams in good spots. Last game of the night, Arizona and LA. The Dodgers. Looks like it's going to be Robbie Ray on the hill against Rich Hill. Ray, super boomer bust option. We know he can go out and strike out 10. We know he can go out and give up 7 earned runs in 4 innings. And I'm kind of on the latter part of this. He's one I always want to pay attention to ownership because he is so volatile. With power, if he's off just a little bit, he's going to get crushed. If he's on, like I said, he can go strike out 10 guys in 6 innings type of thing. So he's going to see a good helping of righties. Right now I'm saying Jock in the projected lineup, but if it is indeed Robbie Ray, Jock will not be in this lineup. He does not hit against lefties for the most part. So it's going to be Turner, Machado, Kike, Brian Dozier, Chris Taylor, Yasiel Puig. I mean, really, really tough spot for Ray. So I like the Dodgers as a stack. I'm assuming since they only have a 4 total that they won't be any sort of chalky just because we got the Red Sox and because we got the Yankees in what look like nut spots. And I also like the Rockies. But I will be on the Dodgers for sure. I'm on them all the time. They just have way too many good hitters against righties or against lefties in this case. So I'm all over the Dodgers. I will have some Ray to offset that. And I think, like I said, it sounds like I'm waffling, but Ray is just a guy that I always, when I have him, I always have stacks against him. When I am really heavy on a stack against him, I will have some Ray shares just because he's at an 8K price, and he's just so volatile. Rich Hill, 9,400. Someone that I've been on a lot recently. He strikes out more righties than lefties. A lot more, actually. 28% of righties this year. I think he's a pretty volatile guy to play here. Like, his range of outcomes are pretty high, in my opinion. Near 50% hard contact against righties for Rich Hill this year. I mean, I want to play Pollock and Goldschmidt, but I do respect Hill. And those are going to be the 2 guys I'm heaviest on the Diamondbacks. They almost always are. They're so cheap. Pollock 4,100, Goldschmidt 4,800. And, man, if Rich Hill is going to be the chalkier option, then I don't mind a couple Diamondbacks. They're mostly going to be mini stacks just because I respect Hill so much. But I will have some Arizona bats. And I do prefer Marquez over Hill. So I will probably be way under the field on Rich Hill because he's almost always like a top 3 owned option when he's at home and you get this low total against him. Vegas really respects him. So most DFSers do also like him. All right, that's going to do it. Quick rundown of the Thursday slate. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Get to osmo.com. Check out the deeper dive, the ownership projections, the rankings, spotlight hitters, pitchers, stacks, the live stream. I'll be on with Chris tomorrow. I'll be on the strategy video, as always, with Josh. And we will have the live chat. So come in there, hang out, and we will see you in the morning.